John here with you. It is July 24th, 2020. I know we don't have any console release dates or prices yet, but now we're in late July going into August. I think it's finally time for me to sit down here with you and talk about the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, the plans for both consoles, what might be under the hood for both of these consoles from what we know so far, and if you're thinking about it, like my TV is very, very ancient, if you're thinking about getting a replacement, what you need to have in your TV and what you need to do going forward. I think this is a good spot to start. So we're going to get into this, and I'm going to make this as clear and concise as possible where I can. When I start talking about the new console from Microsoft and the Xbox, the way that's set up, it does get very, very confusing. So I'm going to try to break it down as clear as possible here for you. So right now, we are ending the 8th gen of consoles between Microsoft and Sony. So from the Microsoft end, you have the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, and the Xbox One X, right? So we are heading now into the 9th gen for these future consoles. Now you have the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. I can't imagine what that's going to be like for a parent trying to shut their kid up and plop their ass in front of the TV and give them the latest technological gift when you have 5 different consoles that could be on the market at one time. Even though Microsoft said they're taking a couple of these off the market, and I'll tell you which ones, it's going to be very confusing around that holiday season of what you want to do. So here's the breakdown. Right now, within the 8th gen, as I said, we are looking at Xbox One, which is pretty much the same as the PlayStation 4 as far as compute performance and all of that. That's what we have currently. The Xbox One S is kind of an Xbox One console redesign. Nothing really new under the hood except for the 4K Blu-rays and stuff like that. The Xbox One X was kind of like the PlayStation 4 Pro, the mid-gen refresh, although it was much, much beefier. Microsoft did a really good job in this in terms of making a 4K console with a lot of the games being able to play them at higher resolutions. It was a really quality piece of work. But now, Microsoft is taking the Xbox One X, the mid-gen refresh, off the market just after 2 years because of these names. So you will not be able to most likely purchase an Xbox One or an Xbox One X. So hopefully when that comes to holiday time, it's going to make things a little less stressful. But with the Xbox Series S, you are going to have a same console as the X, but it's going to be less powerful as far as resolutions. You're going to have a lot under the hood. The games are going to play at like 1440p. They're not going to play in 4K. They're not going to output some other things in 8K. You're going to be able to get this for a cheaper price most likely. If you want a PlayStation 5 competitor, if you want the most powerful console from Xbox this holiday season, you want the Xbox Series X. It has more power than the PlayStation 5, and it's going to be ready to go as far as a lot of the stuff under the hood. So hopefully that was clearly explained for you. If your son or daughter or anyone else is a Microsoft fan and they want to be able to purchase a console and you want to get the most out of your TV and your games and all of that, you want the Xbox Series X. Is that clear? I hope it is. So, if any questions, Facebook.com/TBUGunslinger, Twitter @JohnReinott. As always, you can get at me and I'll try to clarify things even more if I need to. So, now with the consoles talked about, we need to talk about Microsoft's plans as far as next gen and what they're trying to do. So, on the onset, there will not be console exclusives. So, in this sense, the Xbox Series X, the most powerful console from Microsoft, will not have Series X exclusive games until 2022. That seems like a long way away, and I'm going to tell you why that is. Because all games are now composed between 7 different platforms, whether it is the xCloud, which is something that you can play on your phone, tablet, devices like that, or your Windows PC, or the 5 consoles that we mentioned. So, talk about it this way. If you're going to play Halo Infinite, the newest Halo in the series, you will be able to play that game if you own an Xbox One console or any iteration of those 5. That's cool. You will be able to play that on any console. Granted, the resolutions and everything else will be different, but Microsoft is more or less telling you, and we already know this from Sony and we already know this from Nintendo, these companies don't make money off the consoles. They often undercut each other and everything else to get the consoles sold, get them in the home. It's where they make the money off the controllers and games. We all know this. But Microsoft's plan is to not force others into buying a specific console. There's going to be a multifaceted approach in between these 5 consoles all the way up to 2022 as far as if you want to play a game on one of our consoles, you want to play it, you'll be able to do it. You don't have to force yourself into buying the latest console in order to play the games. And a lot of them is going to have some type of upgrade program where a lot of that, specifically Microsoft, is good in that sense. It's going to be a free upgrade. So if you had an Xbox One, an Xbox One S, or an X, you could then upgrade to the Series X or the Series S at no charge. So the one thing they also want to encourage in the Microsoft camp is the Xbox Game Pass. Now, I haven't owned an Xbox console since the 360, but I'll break this down here for you. So, kind of like how PlayStation is with the PlayStation Now, the Xbox Game Pass is ultimately just a better value. And a lot of the games that are there are a lot of the games that come out pretty much, within the next couple of weeks, you can already play them as long as you're paying for the Game Pass. Granted, you have to have a good connection to be able to stream the games and things like that, but you can play the newest games right off Jump Street. Microsoft wants to try to do that to get everyone playing their games as quickly as possible. And I do like that consumer-friendly approach from Microsoft. And I have to give them credit where credit is due. They're doing a good job in that regard. But as I've tried to explain to you, I'm also extremely confused that Microsoft is indeed touting the most powerful console, the Xbox Series X, but not yet designing specifically for it until after 2022. And this is why I think this is a problem. With the Xbox showcase just happening yesterday, we had the PlayStation one about a month ago. One of the biggest games in Microsoft's camp and one of the biggest franchises, Halo, that everybody knows, the first-person shooter, was touted. Halo Infinite, right? So you do get a chance to see what that looks like. And yeah, it looked extremely impressive with Master Chief and all that in cutscenes. But when you stepped outside, as I watched on Review Tech USA's channel on YouTube and Rich and all that, he's talking about it doesn't look so clean as soon as you step outside of that ship. And here's the problem I have. You want to make something between 5 consoles, and we'll go through this again. The Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One X, or the next-gen versions, Xbox Series S or the Xbox Series X. That's 5 different consoles along cloud gaming and PC. So 7 different varieties. That's going to give you a different experience. You're telling me between these 7 different varieties, you want to make the game playable on all 7. So let's say I am a brand new next generation owner of the most powerful console on the market, the Xbox Series X. When I'm watching some of the gameplay of Halo Infinite, and I'm not talking about some of the thing looking like a Destiny clone. Hopefully it still remains a lot of the Halo gameplay, the fast frenetic gameplay that a lot of players have grown to love. I'm not talking about all of that. But what I am saying is when I'm watching through the video about 3.5 minutes in, is just like Rich was pointing out, there shouldn't be trees and textures popping in. There shouldn't be stuff that doesn't even look as good as the Xbox One X. The mid-gen refresh, if you will, of this 8th generation. Yes, that's a mid-gen refresh done right of the Xbox One X as far as having 4K visuals on a lot of stuff. But Halo 5 Guardians should not look better on an Xbox One X than having Halo Infinite, the new game, on an Xbox Series X, the world's most powerful console. That's a problem. And that's where I think when you have all these different facets as far as console variations, PC and cloud gaming and phone gaming and all of that, where you're trying to get everything to run on the same thing. Obviously, if you're not having console exclusives until 2022, you're going to take a graphical fidelity hit. And if it was me, I did not buy the most powerful console on the market to take that graphical fidelity hit. I would be pretty damn pissed off in that sense. I would feel like I'm wasting my money a little bit. And yet, granted, the game is not out yet, but it will be a launch title for Xbox in the 2020 holiday season as far as the Series X and all that stuff coming out. I'd be a little upset if the graphics and everything else are not up to snuff if that's what I'm choosing to pay for on the high end. So, your exclusives, and I'm not talking Series X exclusives because there will not be until 2022, but games that you can only get on Microsoft. Forza Motorsport, a new Fable reboot, which is very, very good to see considering the last one that was supposed to be on the Xbox One, the S, or the X, did not come to fruition. Good to see that it will be there. Everwild from Rare, which is an action-adventure game, or from what it looks like, and Avowed. Makers are Obsidian, from the Outer Worlds, Fallout New Vegas, kind of looked like a Pillars of Eternity, Skyrim, Oblivion type game. Very, very good to see in the sense of that, which had me excited, especially playing Oblivion on the Xbox 360. I want to get some good classic RPG, and that looked pretty cool. Only problem that I have with it in this show, and we're talking about it, is they were all just videos. Really wasn't gameplay to speak of, unlike the PlayStation side, which we've talked about many times before. And some exclusivity limited titles maybe include the Medium and Scarlet Nexus. So that means it's going to be a timed exclusive. They have a lot of that stuff, especially on PlayStation. There's been some of those things with Final Fantasy and all of that. Some timed exclusive. So really, what you have is your two, Avowed and Everwild, two games that you really can only get on the Xbox platforms that are exclusives that people are really, really, really excited about, I would believe, even though I know Halo Infinite and Forza Motorsport and Fable and all of that. But when it's tied within these 7 different ways to play, and I seen what I saw with the Halo Infinite gameplay trailer, I am a little bit concerned as far as, am I getting the graphical prowess that I was promised? And going down the line in these next-gen games, there's no doubt in my mind that Xbox will find a way to take that greater hardware power in the Series X and make it so. But that remains to be seen whether or not when their console-exclusive games launch down the road between 2022 and 23 and all of that in the future, that we're actually going to see maybe what we were promised. And that's not something I want to think about if I'm buying a console this holiday season in just a few short months. So, a couple other things. If you're getting a Microsoft console, you got to be thinking about a couple things. They've partnered with Seagate to give you all of your storage needs. So, in this sense, whether it be console cards, and it looks like cards in terms of memory and all that upgraded inside of the Series X, you'll be able to do that, but you're going to be paying an extra amount of money as far as Seagate is concerned to upgrade your console. So this is another thought process that I have between PlayStation and Microsoft in particular. So Microsoft and PlayStation have not announced console prices as of yet, and I do have a few reasons to think as to why that is. And one of these might have to do with the Seagate storage and obviously undercutting the other just to try to sell more in a holiday season, which makes sense. That's the kind of stuff that always happens. But here's my thoughts. If you're paying more to upgrade your storage on the Xbox because you're paying the Seagate brand, it leads me to believe that Microsoft will be able to undercut their consoles maybe by $50 even to $100 over Sony, because if you can say, here, the console is cheaper, get this in your home, play this, but at the same time down the road, when you're going to inevitably want to upgrade your storage because you can only have maybe 3 or 4 games on your console at one time without running out of space, yeah, the console's cheaper, but you're going to be paying more for the storage down the road, and that's where they're going to be able to get you. We all kind of have those thoughts, and what do you think about it? Facebook.com/TBUGunslinger, Twitter @JohnReinot. Yes, I love the consumer-friendly approach from Microsoft and the many different ways to play, but again, my main concern is if I'm a Series X owner, if I'm an owner of the most powerful console on the market, then I want to be able to feel like I have that power, get the best graphical prowess and all that. When you're trying to get all these games to run on 7 different platforms, it gets pretty disconcerting if it doesn't turn out to be that way. So again, to reiterate before I close here, the Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One X. The One and the S is just the current ones there now. So Xbox One, PS4, kind of mark those off in the same thing. The S is just a redesign of the One with the 4K video and stuff like that. The One X is the mid-gen refresh of the PlayStation 4 Pro. This gives you 4K gaming and all of that stuff for the most part in all of your current Microsoft games. But that is getting taken off the market, the Xbox One X and the Xbox One, I believe. So hopefully when you get into the holiday season, you will only see the Series S and the Series X. So if you want the most powerful console this holiday season, if you want the creme de la creme, you want to buy the Xbox Series X. If you buy the Series S, you're going to be getting a low fidelity graphical output to be able to play all the same games anyway, as far as next gen is concerned. So hopefully that sets everything straight. And as always, if you have any questions, again, let me know. So Sony's plans. Just 2 consoles to speak of. And one I thought was a very brash thing for them to do, considering it's 2020. Not all of us at this point, and you can consider it a first world problem if you want, but I'm just going to state the obvious here. Not all of us have the fastest internet on Earth. You don't have gigabit internet. So when Sony came out and announced that they're going to have a PlayStation 5 all-digital edition, a lot of us scratched our head, and I think the company at GameStop and all those execs probably shit their pants, because a lot of the stuff that they have is physical-based media. So if you're having the PlayStation 5 all-digital edition, notice it is what it is. There is a console without a disk drive inside it. Now, to me, personally, as someone that loves to be able to play games and have everything else, I like the PlayStation brand and all of that, the digital edition is not my cup of tea, because I think about it, even I can say the same thing on the Microsoft camp. If I have maybe 4 games installed in my hard drive is filled to capacity. If I want to delete those games, with the digital edition, the only way I can install them back is re-downloading them, which takes forever and a day. Especially now we're going into the new consoles again in this next generation where the games only get bigger. It's going to take forever and a day to download the games. For most of us, I don't have the fastest internet on Earth. So that's not something that I want to be concerned with. And at the same time, if I'm making a digital-only console, I need to be able to sell that at least $100 cheaper in order for this to make any sense. Because if you're going in there and you buy a movie, oh shit, I can't play it, I don't have a disk drive, I bought the wrong one. Or if I'm going to do this, oh, I ran out of hard drive space, I better be careful. That's why I'm going to spend whatever the proprietary amount is, and I imagine these consoles, as we talked about, they're not going to be any more than $500. And there's more rumors that pass throughout day after day after day. All of a sudden, now within the last month from June to where we are right now in late July, that they're saying these consoles will be significantly cheaper than we expected, which is good news. But you pay whatever, even if it ends up being $400. It's a freaking steal to get a thing with the disk drive and all that, which you should already have, being able to have a machine that does gaming in 4K and has some output in 8K. So gaming in 4K, especially for the Series X, and gaming in 4K most likely for the PlayStation 5, and it'll have some output, and that's a pretty good value in considering what you would pay to have that same kind of stuff inside a PC. So here's the thing. If you have your PlayStation consoles, it's pretty simple. It's PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 all digital. There never really is any concern about which one should I buy because everyone is significantly numbered. So you know what you're getting. So just keep in mind, if you're getting the digital edition, you don't have a disk drive, and your hard drive space will be most likely the same amount as the initial normal PlayStation 5, because granted, they can save $100 probably taking off of that disk drive, but they're not going to do you the common decency of giving you more storage space. It's not going to happen. I would think we'd have to be dreaming to think that's going to happen. So get the PlayStation 5 normally with the disk drive. You'll be able to thank yourself later. Doesn't mean you can't still play games downloading it digitally off the store, but you want to have all the features available to you. So Sony's plans, all exclusive games are going to launch that they've mentioned, and I'll mention them here, by 2021. So Spider-Man 2 Miles Morales pretty much is what that is. Spider-Man was an incredible exclusive for the PlayStation 4. That's going to be a launch title. So going forward, PlayStation exclusive games, I'm not talking about playable on the PlayStation 4 or other branding like that. These are PS5 made for PS5 exclusives. Spider-Man Miles Morales launch title, and then future projects by 2021. Horizon Forbidden West, that's your Horizon 2 sequel. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which is always a good action-adventure game. Gran Turismo 7, you can kind of mark that a checkbox for both Microsoft and Sony as far as, Forza Motorsport for the Microsoft camp and Gran Turismo for the Sony camp. And if Gran Turismo goes back, 7 goes back to the initial single-player experience and all of that and give everybody what they want instead of making Gran Turismo Sport, you're going to be pretty happy with that. And then a shooter in Returnal, Sackboy: A Big Adventure from Little Big Planet, a Demon's Souls remake, and Destruction All-Stars, which I'm not going to say Twisted Metal, but kind of looked a little bit like that, some car combat. So here's the thing. With the PlayStation and the Xbox Series X, PS5 and Xbox Series X, you're going to have a faster solid-state drive. And what that means, no longer a mechanical drive, these games are going to load obscenely fast. Way faster than they ever have before. So they're going to be a lot of those times we're going to have no load times, no waiting, no things like that. So with the Xbox Series X, still a solid state drive at 2.4 gigabyte throughput speed, which is pretty damn fast. The PlayStation 5, though, 5.5 gigabyte throughput, incredibly fast. So especially when you're going in these console exclusives and all that on the PlayStation 5 and some other things that they make, you can specifically see probably down the road that the PlayStation 5 could have significant load times that are way, way better than the Series X, even though they're going to be fast, but it's going to be significantly faster, and in the sense of playing third-party games, sports games, things like that, other games that are available to you, Call of Duties and things like that, can see a significantly faster load time on PlayStation's console rather than the Series X. But the Series X in Microsoft camp has more teraflops than the PlayStation 5. And all that means is kind of like the bit wars from back in the day where they have more under the hood. So the console is going to be more powerful, 12 teraflops for the Series X to 10.28 for the PS5. Now, here's where I talk about this before, and I mentioned this on I wrote it down a little bit of a post on Facebook a few months ago, but I want to reiterate this again. Now, down the line for the Series X, we could see with their games look a little bit better than the PlayStation 5. There is more under the hood. That cannot be understated. It's true. But if you're making it, like I mentioned, games between 7 different consoles and not having any exclusives in Microsoft camp until after 2022, you won't see much difference. I also don't believe in my heart of hearts, and this is not trying to be a fanboy of anything else, I think we learned, going back into the previous generations, this would be the 7th generation between the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. Third-party games ran better on the Microsoft Xbox 360. You could play games in 1080p. You can only play games in 720p on the PlayStation 3. They ran better. Everything else was all set and good to go. We knew that. Going into next gen, the current gen that we're in right now, this 8th gen here between PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, games ran better on the PlayStation 4. Not by a lot, but they still did. Had some of that stuff where it had to be downgraded in resolution because of the Xbox One, and the PlayStation 4 honestly was too weak. So we're going into this 9th gen knowing that these consoles are going to be pretty damn powerful. They're going to be big. They're not going to have these issues like the PlayStation 3 did where the heatsink came apart, or you had the red ring of death on the Xbox 360. This isn't going to happen because the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, Xbox Series X is going to be more powerful under the hood. There's going to be bigger consoles, and they're going to be ready to go. I don't personally believe that we're going to be dealing with a lot of hardware failure like we did in the previous generations. I would feel more comfortable, honestly, telling you right now. July 24, 2020, about 7 p.m. right now, is doing this video. I can tell you right now, I feel more comfortable putting my money down. I am not someone that has ever bought a console on launch. I've always waited several months, probably 5 or 6 months, for the bugs to all be fixed out, and then I bought it later, and I never regretted it. But honestly now, I think both camps between Sony and Microsoft have realized that we can't cram all this stuff into a small box anymore. We need to make this more like computer towers. How these games are becoming more like lighter PC machines every iteration out here. But they know they cannot have these catastrophic hardware failures that have crippled the systems in the past. I believe this isn't going to happen this time. Although there will be some issues, there's always some issues and hiccups. I don't think we're going to have the mass hardware failures that we had in the previous generations in the past. So, with the extra graphics and everything else I talked about, it might not be for a little while that we see the Xbox and some of their exclusives be able to have more power and see what it can truly be. That also depends on the studios and the games that are made, as of always, as far as anything we're talking about Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo. But what I will say, the point I will make, these third-party games, whether you're playing sports games, whether you're playing NBA 2K, Madden, FIFA, all of that stuff, Call of Duty and all of that, you're not going to find, in my heart of hearts, you're not going to find much difference as far as performance in both of these consoles as far as the third-party games. If you're thinking one console is going to be more powerful than the other and give you a more superior experience, you will not find that in this generation for the most part, especially early in these third-party console games. You won't. So whether it's EA, Activision, 2K, things like that, just be prepared. You're probably getting the same experience on both. There's going to be little trinkets here and there, but I'm telling you, and what I believe and what we see right now and what we got under the hood, there's not going to be much difference between these third-party games. So don't worry about that too much as far as getting a superior experience. So, storage. This is where I bag on both of these consoles. The Series X is at 1 terabyte. The PlayStation 5 is at 825 gigs. So while the storage is upgradable through Seagate on Microsoft's end, or you can get a more powerful, and not more powerful, a hard drive that has more space and stuff in the PlayStation 5, as long as it's got their own throughput speeds and they don't have their own brand. You can get your own stuff, but it's not going to be available right off launch. But the problem that I have with the storage is the Series X is only at 1 terabyte. That's 1,000 gigs. And the PlayStation 5 is only at 825 gigs. These games right now on the PlayStation 4, you get about, 500 gigs of storage? And I didn't even have double that. In this sense, the games were already big. They're already about over 110 gigs a piece on some of these console exclusives. Granted, if we double in size here again, that's if we do, just depending on how big these games are going to be, 3 or 4 games either one of these consoles, your console's probably going to be tapped out as far as storage space. So that's a big ass bummer. Now, to keep console prices down, obviously lower storage space. Obviously, I get all that. But for PlayStation to not even have a terabyte is absolutely unacceptable. And for Series X and everything else to only be in a terabyte, if we really wanted to get the bare minimum of what we should have had, 2 terabytes would seemingly be the bare minimum. To be able to have your games installed and not be able to just have to go through the pain of re-downloading the games, installing, uninstalling, and doing all of that. Again, I know it seems like a first world problem, but that's something that is really much of a bother. And even though they take and sell these consoles at a loss, they're going to be able to get you as far as pricing down the road because you're going to need to upgrade that hardware. Granted, I never did that on the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, or the PS4, but I'm probably going to do that for the first time on the PS5, especially if these consoles are going to be as good as they are. So, TV must-haves. So here's the thing. You do not have to go out and buy a new TV to enjoy your consoles. If you're still rocking a Panasonic Viera Plasma like I am, that's a 1080p, I got that around the release of Resident Evil 5. I'll tell you how long ago that was. That was March 5th, 2009. I got the TV sometime in June. So this TV is at least over 11 years old. It's on its death's door anyway, as far as crapping out pretty much the amount of hours I put in. Granted, plasmas last for a long time, but I'm due for a new TV. Granted, they're saying 4K gaming and some output in 8K, and I'm still rocking a plasma from about 12 years ago. I'm one of those ones that's due and excited to get a new TV. But if you already have a 4K TV, even if you have a TCL, one of those cheap China ones, that are very, very good as far as gaming still, even though things can be a little dark and all of that. The gameplay aspect and the lag and all that, it's still pretty damn good for the amount of the budget TV that you get. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you would be in line for an upgrade if you choose not to be. However, if you're really looking to buy a new TV, I want to suggest a couple things to you. First, I would work before you even think about getting a TV. Obviously, get the money saved up the first time. As far as the console and the TV, it's a safe bet. You're going to say, John, this is a lot of money, but I'm just ballparking this here for you. It's a safe bet if the consoles are $500, and I don't think they're going to be. As far as everything else that I've heard, I think the consoles will probably be $400. And if you're going between a Series S or a digital edition for the PlayStation, the digital edition could be as low as $300 or $349, and the Series S, they're saying, with a little bit less under the hood, could be as low as like $200, which is astronomical. That blows my mind. But if you want to get the best of the best, let's say you're spending and you're doing it the right way, you're getting the best of the best, it's where you're buying the next Gen 4, let's just ballpark it and say the consoles are $500. And let's just ballpark it and say the TV is $1,000. So you're safely spending ballpark $1,500. Safely. Just admit and say that you have a little bit of that in your back pocket. You should be good to go for the most part. Here is where I issue the warning to you as far as TVs. I can tell you what you need because I got all this stuff written down here for you and explain it to you clearly. But at the same time, if you're getting the TV, don't rush to get the TV now. You still have the CES shows and all that stuff in Vegas at the end of the year, even if they don't end up having all the shows because of the coronavirus and all of that. The new technology is still on its way. So we don't necessarily know everything that's going to be under the hood between the Series X and the PlayStation 5 as of yet. So until you actually get the console in your hands, in your home, I would lay off getting a TV as of now. Because you want to know specifically when you're buying your TV, you don't want to do one of the small grade approach. You want to go at least mid grade where you know you're going to be able to have your TV safely and with the technology updated for at least a couple console cycles. And theoretically, guys, that means for about 10 years. So you shouldn't have to replace your TV for about 10 years. So I'm about 12 years into this one here. going from 1080p, now I'm going to be going to 4K to some of the 8K stuff. It's definitely time for an upgrade in that sense. But until you actually get your console in your home, you might want to hold off on that. But I can tell you some things here as far as the TV and what you need to do. So, on your new TV, you want to have HDMI 2.1. So right now, on a lot of your TVs, you're going to have HDMI, and maybe some of you are still rocking composite cables and all that. I hope you're not still doing that in 1080i or 720p, but some of you might still be doing that. HDMI 2.1 is different from regular HDMI, because instead of 1080p, it goes all the way up to 8K resolution. And it also changes the amount of hertz and rates that speed can be displayed on your TV. So you want a couple other things. You want an auto low latency mode, which allows the game to not deal with lag and things like that. So if something goes throughout the TV, it automatically fixes itself. It goes to whatever the game settings ultimately is, so you get the best picture of all time. And as far as the variable refresh rate, as far as the speeds that the games need to be, if you have the auto low latency mode and the variable refresh rate, the game can stay at the correct quality it's supposed to be, with the picture always never being interrupted. That's why it's important to have those features, and having HDMI 2.1 allows those features to be inputted, to have the auto latency mode and the variable refresh rate, and 2.1 also gives you access to 4K 120 or 8K 60 frames per second. And if you have 120 hertz, a lot of these games now are going to be able to run in 120 hertz. So a lot of you don't have a TV that has that speed right now. You're going to want a TV that has, again, HDMI 2.1, auto low latency mode, variable refresh rate, and can run at 120 hertz. That's what we know of right now. So between those four things, I also ask you this. Do you want a 4K TV or do you want an 8K TV? Now, 8K TVs are still relatively expensive, right? And 4K TVs have been around for years and years now. It's not something that's new. Again, even though I'm rocking a 1080p plasma, the gaming on PS4 and all of that's still only 1080p. So no need to upgrade any of that stuff. But if you're in the market to get a new gaming TV, you got to know, for the most part, and Sony's going to tout this, and I believe this more in the Microsoft camp, that you can be able to play games in full 4K. At the same time, we should know this. One very, very important note. Unless you have a $2,500 PC rigged the game on, you're not really getting 8K gaming, and you're not really getting 120 hertz unless you're spending that kind of moolah. You're getting consoles that cost about $400 or less, maybe $5 at most, but $400 or less. You're not likely getting 8K visuals with 120 and running everything systemically perfect. The only way you're going to be able to do that stuff is probably in the future between the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox. So right now, what I'm telling you is, when you buy your console and you start playing the games at home, and you're bitching because you have to choose between 4K visuals or a certain 60 frames or 120 frames, guys, that's the way it's going to be for the most part. You're not going to have these games run at perfect 4K 120 or 8K 60. You're going to have to choose between resolution and frame rate, which is a lot of the stuff that you're already doing between the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X, although that is a little bit systemically beefier, right? But you're already having to choose between a lot of that. And again, unless you're running the highest quality PC on the planet, you're still choosing between that. So you're going to get the best of both eventually, but it's probably not going to happen on these consoles. But at the same time, I'm not telling you to not purchase a 4K TV. You're going to need to do that at this point. It's whether or not you're going to be getting any 8K TVs. I'm going to be looking in the market a few months down the road, probably, I don't know, this summer, as far as a TV and things like that, if I can try to get a console at launch, unless the coronavirus does all of that. You do want to get a TV, but you do want to make sure before you do that, you have the console in your house. Double check all the features that it has so then you know exactly what you're looking for. Again, I can recommend you need HDMI 2.1, auto low latency mode, variable refresh rate, and a TV that runs at 120 Hz. But as far as everything else in resolutions, I can't tell you all of that until we actually have the consoles and the TVs available on the market for the technology that's there. Because we're coming at a weird time right now. Not talking just about the coronavirus, but in the sense of the PlayStation 5 and the Series X, where the technology and the consoles are at the forefront like they were between the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 more than the TVs have been. So the consoles are a little bit ahead of the TVs. We need to wait for that to catch up a few months down the road, especially these CES shows in winter, if we still have that. Even though we know the technology is coming, we're going to need to wait a few months, not only for these consoles to be in the home, but to know exactly what technology is available on the market and then attack it with exactly what you need. So, what's next if you want any of this stuff? If you want these consoles, we're in late July. Again, prices should have already been announced, but we're thinking about it logically. PlayStation or Microsoft is waiting to undercut one another. And if I have to guess who's going to undercut one the most, it's probably Microsoft with their Seagate proprietary hard drive agreement, that they're going to be able to sell the consoles a little bit cheaper than PlayStation. First blush, that's my complete guess. But what's next if you want any of this stuff? If you want a PlayStation 5, go to PlayStation.direct.com or direct.playstation.com. Go to that website. You can buy from PlayStation directly. So when you see that announcement that the pre-orders are available, whatever day that is, you better be on your computer on home at that time and be frantically clicking, because honestly, guys, we have to deal with scalpers, just like music concerts and anything else like that that sell things on Amazon and stuff like that want to try to round everything up so we can't get the stuff in the home. You're going to have to deal with all the competition as far as all of that. It's just the way it is. But if you want any of that stuff, I would encourage you either buying from the Microsoft Store or buying from PlayStation directly, in the sense, before you actually go into the stores, because that's going to be a nightmare. Because whether you do it from Walmart, Target, or GameStop, or Best Buy, or any of your local stores, that hardware is going to be a little bit limited. But at the same time, from what I saw, Sony is going from 5 million to 10 million unit production. 10 million is a significant upgrade, but in the grand scheme of things, it is not really anything. It's going to be hard to find. In the sense of, I never really get anything when it launches, usually on the holiday. If we go through this coronavirus thing and it takes long enough to where it's not available until May or June, I'm going to try to get one now to get everything squared away, considering I'm going to be paying the same price anyway. All I'm doing is waiting more for no reason. So at that point, I'm going to try to do what I can to get the console when I can get it. But what I did find for PlayStation, especially if you go to direct.playstation.com and you're a PlayStation Plus member, you can get free shipping as far as express shipping and try to get all of that there. So granted, as long as the guy doesn't fucking throw it around and destroy it all, if you can open it up and everything else is intact, you can get the system a lot faster, and you also don't have to fight the crowds and everything else when you're going through the pre-orders, because it's not something I want to do, especially during the time of a pandemic. So if you have any other further questions, facebook.com/TBUgunslinger, Twitter @JohnReinott. As always, let me know what you think, and I will be quick to get back with you if you have any other questions. I hope that this was helpful. I kind of wanted to do this now because we just went through the Xbox showcase. We had the PlayStation stuff a month ago. Again, I know that we don't have prices and official release dates, but I know holiday 2020, so you got to believe before Christmas, maybe sometime even as soon as like around Black Friday, that these consoles are going to be launching. So I'm telling you all of this stuff right now to try to get you ready, get you prepared, and maybe some of the other things that you need to look out for as far as what consoles that you're going to buy, what you're looking into, and the information that you need to know. I hope that this was very helpful. I hope that it was very succinct. But again, if you have any questions, let me know what you think, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. As always, guys, have a good one. I appreciate it. Peace out.